All right, everybody, it is streaming time here on this Wednesday. We'll get you set up for Wednesday and Thursday streams on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Ba-bing, ba-boom. There's the graphic on your board, YouTubers. March 19th, March 20th, the 2 days. Question, please drop a follow over on Twitter at Dan Bespris, although admittedly, I'm not doing as much over there as I did a couple weeks ago. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, and we post our shorts, our videos over on Instagram. That's Old Man Squad Fantasy. More importantly, please subscribe. That's the big one right now. We really are trying to grow this just a little bit here before the season ends. Whatever we can do now helps to kind of roll over. And again, we do shows all off season long. So don't heart on us just because the fantasy season is over. We do a ton of prep, a ton of review, team by teams. And then before you know it, we're into draft season. Then we're into free agency. Then we're into summer league. And then leagues open. Fantasy's back. Just like that. Today's a busy day for streaming. Tomorrow, not so much. So we'll spend most of our time on today's show talking about tonight, Wednesday night. There are multiple teams to avoid. The worst of them, debatable. The Clippers and the Hawks can duke it out for the worst schedules coming up starting today. Clippers, 2 games over the next 7 days. That, of course, they are off today and tomorrow. They play on Friday and Sunday, and then they're off for 2 more after that. So there's kind of like a mid-chunk to that. That's not the worst thing in the universe. But overall, and especially if your league goes into next week, Clipper schedule stinks because then they go every other day for 4 days before their schedule actually picks back up in a heavy way on March 30th. But between now and then, 4 games between today and March 30th, that is not getting it done. So Clippers, fringy streamers, not the time. Hawks are off for 3 days starting today. They do go back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, so there is a little bit of revenge for Atlanta in terms of schedule at the very end of the week. But if you have anybody that's not one of the big 3 on that team, you got to let him go. Also, slightly less awful schedule, the Boston Celtics and Toronto Raptors. Raptors being the least of the awfuls because we've talked about them for a couple of days in a row. The Raptors have this goofball schedule where they were off yesterday, they're off today, they play tomorrow, then they're off for 2 more days after that. So if you didn't drop a Raptor yesterday, at this point, if it's somebody you really like, you might as well just hold them through tomorrow, and then you could consider dropping them for their back-to-back off days. Boston, slightly worse because they're off for 2 days before their schedule actually gets much better. Then they go 3 times in 4 nights starting on Friday. Although, again, one of those rolls into next week, so maybe not quite as important if you're in your fantasy finals right now. Teams to target are plentiful. The Sacramento Kings have the best schedule on the board. They go 5 times out of the next 7 days starting tonight. So Kings back, and it's all at home, by the way. They're on a 6-7 game homestand. That started with their, win over Memphis on Monday. Now they've got Cleveland tonight. Cavs on a second half of back-to-back after that tough late one in Los Angeles. Chicago tomorrow, Milwaukee on Saturday, Boston and OKC to start next week. It's a tough part of the schedule, make no mistake. Not only in how many games they're playing, but in the opponents the Kings are playing as well. The other problem with Sacramento is, and we'll get into this in a minute, they don't have that many streaming options right now. Depending on how long your league goes, I think you can make a decent argument that any of the other teams is a decent option. If your season goes beyond this week, the Wizards are your best ticket. Wizards, Pacers, Lakers, they're all kind of tied for your best ticket because they all go 6 times in 9 nights. If your league ends sooner, you're going to want to go with a team that has a back-to-back and a 3 and 4 because that gets you 3 games in 4 nights through Saturday and also opens you up, if you wanted to make another move on Sunday. If you had one to sort of blow at the very end of the week, although I don't know that that's the best idea right now because you can't. The best you can do is gain 1 game making a move on Sunday. Other moves you're making earlier in the week, you have an opportunity to gain 2 games played. So something to think about. But Chicago has a back-to-back, 3 out of 4 and 4 out of 6. Indiana, same thing. Lakers, same thing, although Indy and the Lakers also have that back-to-back in the middle of next week. So that's what gets them their 6 games in 9 nights. The Knicks, back-to-back and a 3 and 4, but then they're off for a couple days after that game against Washington on Saturday, before their schedule picks back up on Tuesday of next week. And then as the Wizards, we mentioned, they don't have a back-to-back, but they do go 3 times in 4 nights, playing here on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday. So they hit their sort of low tide day, whatever you want to call it. It's Saturday where the other teams play their low tide game on Thursday. Who should you add? Great question. You should add our friends at Bet Online. You guys thought I forgot. I didn't forget. They're the most trusted betting platform in the world and your number one source for betting on March Madness in 2025. This is one of the best times to get money down all season long because there are so many games and there are soft spots. And the coverage of March Madness involves a lot of talking heads that have no idea what they're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about with March Madness, but I also don't talk about it. I couldn't pause the show in time to get the sneeze out of the way. Man, the allergies are something severe these days. So when, ESPN and CBS covers it in great detail, and TNT and TBS and all these different companies are covering March Madness, and casual sports bettors out there are getting terrible information, that's going to soften up the line on the other side of that. So if you know what you're doing, you can cash in. March Madness is a great time for seasoned bettors to cash in. And if you're just getting in for a first time, dabble. They got a $200,000 bracket contest you can mess around with. That's always fun. Build a bracket. You don't have to know everything to pick a winner. Bet Online, friends, is your number one sports betting source because they've got odds, stats, and more on every game, every play, and every win for your Cinderella story from day one to day, whatever that last Monday is. Bet Online. The game starts here. List of players you could pick from on Wednesday are plentiful. The Chicago Bulls, as we mentioned, have a number of good options. Josh Giddey is due back, so that's going to shrink the board a little bit for Chicago, and I don't think I would go Matas Buzelis unless you really, really had to, and he's not going to get you that much stuff anyway. Tre Jones, I think, is still going to be pretty good even with Giddey back. He likely still maintains the starting job at point guard, and it's probably Kevin Huerter that slides to the bench, who's still a pretty good stream for points and threes and steals, just not quite as locked in on how many minutes and opportunities he's going to get. And for Tre Jones, he probably isn't going to score as much with Giddey back around. He probably doesn't assist quite as much, but he's still a high field goal percent point guard stat guy who doesn't hit three-pointers. He's like if you could power boost TJ McConnell and give him 28 minutes a game. I think you'd want that. Indiana, another team with a good schedule and another team with good options. Aaron Nesmith for percentages, threes, and points. Bennedict Mathurin will get you a nice free throw percent, also scores a bit. If Tyrese Halliburton's back, it makes TJ McConnell a little bit less interesting, but still can get you field goal percent, assists, and steals. It's just a lot easier if one of the other point guards is out. Lakers, we talked about this yesterday as well. No changes there. Jaxson Hayes, Dalton Knecht, and Jordan Goodwin are the three Lakers I would trust because Rui and LeBron are the key guys that remain out. Hayes, I think, is just a great stream regardless, pretty much until they're fully healthy. He's going to be getting good numbers in the field goal percent, boards, and blocks. Might even get you a steal. Dalton Knecht, all you can really count on him is threes, but every once in a while, he'll get you like 3 or 4 rebounds as well. And then Jordan Goodwin, I wouldn't count on a bunch of three-pointers, but teams are leaving him open. So maybe you get 1 or 2 threes, but mostly you're targeting steals if you're going down the Jordan Goodwin path. The Knicks have nobody. Stare at them all you want. They don't use their bench. And when somebody's out, that bench player becomes an every mode guy. That's Miles McBride right now. Sacramento does have Keon Ellis, and they do also have Jake LaRavia. And I probably should have added LaRavia with Domantas Sabonis going back down, but it would push this onto the second page, and I don't really want to do that. Here's how we do this. Watch. I don't really want it to go onto a second page, so I'm just going to remove the word that says none under New York. And we're going to type in Jake LaRavia in real time for boards and steals. There you go. Board updated, friends and confidants. With Sabonis back down for a week and a half, that pushes Jonas Valanciunas into the starting lineup. He's obviously a play everywhere guy, so he's not a streamer. He's better than that. Valanciunas is. But because he's not going to play as much as Sabonis did, that opens up an extra 6, 7, 8 minutes elsewhere. Sacramento already plays the crap out of their starters, so those 6, 7, 8 minutes are going to probably get split between Ellis and LaRavia and maybe Trey Lyles, but these are the two guys that I would trust more. Ellis for steals and some out of position blocks, and then LaRavia, as mentioned, for boards and steals. And Washington is getting real weird with their stuff. Justin Champagnie started for a couple of games. It was amazing. Then he got pushed to the bench, and it was not amazing. Jordan Poole is questionable now. Walker Kessler, by the way, looking at Utah, just in terms of like teams that are doing weird stuff, is going to play. And Markkanen's the guy that ruled out for the Jazz. Not that it matters all that much, but just thinking about teams that are tanking, that are playing each other. That's the game that's coming up tonight. And you figured these two teams are going to rest everybody today. Nay, not the case. They're not resting every single player. I would love to see Champagnie get back in the starting five. If Jordan Poole sits, you could probably get away with a Bub Carrington stream. I don't know. I'd go down that path if Poole is in. We've seen Bub do very little when Jordan is healthy. Keyshawn George is a guy that should actually just be rostered, but I put him on this list because there are a lot of leagues where he's not, and he's great for all counting stats. But again, Champagnie's a guy you're waiting to get the pregame report. If they continue to go other routes just to try stuff out, I don't think that I would go the Champagnie path. And that's annoying because he's a really good free throw percent, boards, and steals combo. That's not a combo that you get from most of these players. Like the guys that are good at rebounding, some of them are good at steals, but they're probably not that great at free throw percent. And then the guys that are good at free throw percent probably aren't big rebounders in general. So he has a really unique and fun fantasy combo game if they let him start. Commercial break time. Enjoy the respite from me yelling at you, and then we'll give you the short Thursday breakdown when we come back. Thursday, lots of teams to avoid-ish, and only one team to target. Boo earns. Thursday is a terrible day for streaming, and it's very important that you guys hear this part of the show because Thursday is the last time you could squeeze 3 games in 4 nights out of a pickup, and there's only one. It's the craptacular Charlotte Hornets, who, if they have most of their guys in, there's nothing there. If we find out somehow, and again, this is a really almost impossible decision to make a day in advance. So for those of you that are on fab budget stuff, you're a little bit screwed. For those that can wait until moments before the Hornets host the Knicks tomorrow, Thursday, you're in at least better shape because then we'll get a report on LaMelo Ball. We'll get a report on Miles Bridges, who I expect to be back because he was listed out for rest, just legitimate rest in their last ball game. Mark Williams is going to sit one half of that back-to-back. We don't know which half it's going to be. And Moussa Diabate is hurt now. So you've got some weird little avenues. Like if LaMelo misses some of those games, Damian Baugh would be an interesting add because he's picking up a lot of the point guard duties, and he does score a little and rebound a little as well. If we find out Mark Williams is definitely out for one of those 2 games, especially the front end of it, Yusuf Nurkic is going to pick up the other, he'll start if Mark Williams is out and probably play 25 minutes. And then in the other game, he'll get 18 to 20, which, roll that together and keep him for all 3 of his remaining games. If you can get like 65 minutes out of Nurk over those last 4 days, that's a pretty good ad. You're not going to find too many guys who have his per minute production, probably a punt free throw build, but whatever, that are going to get you basically the equivalent of 2 full starters minutes over 3 games is what he's doing it. But like you're comparing it against other guys that are playing 2 games, Nurk probably beats him out. So few paths to go down, but so hard to make that decision in advance. We'll give you some other names to look at with Charlotte in just a second. First, the teams to avoid. Atlanta's on the board because they're off for 2 days, but they were on the board for Wednesday when they were off for 3 days. So that one's sort of a tap-in. The other names are the ones I want to focus on here. Dallas, Memphis, Minnesota, and Phoenix. The worst schedule there is a tie, basically, between Minnesota and Memphis. Both those teams play on Friday, and that's it the rest of this week. So, and actually 4 of these teams don't play at all over the weekend. You can throw Phoenix and Dallas into that as well. The reason Memphis and Minnesota are the winners of the bad schedule contest is because Minnesota, after they play on Friday, they're off for 2 days. They play Monday, and then they're off for 3 days. So they go 2 times over 8 days. The Wolves are a get-the-hell-out team. But again, you could also wait until after their game on Friday if you wanted to, because I would argue their schedule actually gets worse after that when they go 1 time over 5 days, over 6 days, excuse me. After Friday, they go 1 time over 6 days. So Minnesota's schedule goes from, every other right now to 1 over 6. That's a mess. Memphis is the other one I mentioned. They're off for 3 days after their game on Friday. That's also you got to get out of it, but you could hold them through their game on Friday if you wanted to. And then Saturday, just like Minnesota, that's the day when you really need to get off of them. Same story for Dallas. You probably should have dropped them a long time ago because it's a 2-game week. But if you've made it this far, you might as well just hold them through Friday. And if your league continues, Dallas actually has a much better schedule after that. They go 8 times over 13 days starting on Monday of next week. So that's the Dallas argument. Phoenix is a much more traditional, like 1/4 and 2/6 thing. Probably the time to drop the Suns player would be on Saturday. That one I think is maybe an easier call to just, hold them through Friday. Because if you have a Suns player you're streaming, they're probably pretty good. So you might as well just squeeze one more game out of them. Unless you really like the target on Charlotte, which I don't. Because there they are, and they're bad. Josh Green, if you need a couple of steals. Daquan Jeffries was actually pretty good in yesterday's game, but I think a lot of that had to do with Miles Bridges being out, so there was just sort of more to do on the wing. He is an okay source of blocks in general. Damian Ball, who we already mentioned, is your choice if LaMelo Ball sits out any of these upcoming games. We figure he'll sit at least one half of the back-to-back, but hard to know about the other 2 games in that 3 and 4. Same story for Yusuf Nurkic, as he's tied to Mark Williams. Nurk is probably my favorite play of these 4 that you're looking at with Charlotte, if only because he's going to get one good game out of it, and even his 2 bad games combined come up to around 1 medium game. So it's like 1 almost guaranteed good and 1 combo medium. And there just aren't that many other guys. Even if you look at all the players playing 2 games the rest of the week, there aren't that many great choices out there on the big man side that are like, okay, if I put these 2 games together, I'm going to get like 1.5 good ones. There might be a couple in your league. I don't know what your waiver wire looks like, but that's why Nurk would be the play to go. But it also comes back to the other discussion I want to have as, again, I'll take this off the board here because, screw the Charlotte options. First of all, please subscribe to the channel before I give you guys some philosophical thoughts at the end of this one on how to stream this week. That's the big one. Hit that subscribe button. Liking it, that's great on YouTube. 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. One of you guys did an Apple review. I don't know who you were, but awesome. You're the best. They don't come in very fast at the end of the year. I got 400 Spotify reviews, and I think we've had 1 in the last 2 weeks. I know you're out there. Somebody found this for the first time. Please do that 5-star. But looking at this again from a moves standpoint, this is why it's so important, actually, that we're doing a lot of these 2-day shows, because now I'm sitting here on Wednesday, middle of the day. It's almost lunchtime here for me on the Pacific Coast. And looking ahead to Thursday, when you're like, okay, well, Thursday is often a day when I want to make a bunch of moves because that's the last time you can squeeze a 3 games out of 4 nights player into this active week. The problem is the options suck. There were 4 or 5 teams you could pick from on Thursday last week. That was great. This week you got Charlotte, and the options on Charlotte are terrible. So not only do you only have 1 team to pick from, but the options on that team suck. So here's where that lands you. Number 1, Thursday's a bad day for streaming. Friday's a totally fine day for streaming. You have plenty more options on Friday going into the beginning of next week. But if your league is over by the end of this week, you're not that worried about getting 3 games in 4 nights. So here are your 2 choices. 1, you try to sit on your moves a little bit longer and make the moves we talked about on the bad schedules I pointed out on Thursday that are also bad schedules on Saturday. You sit around and you wait and you go all Atlanta Hawks over the weekend because they go back-to-back on Saturday, Sunday. They're the only team that goes back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. So if you have a player on a team that's off Saturday, Sunday, that's the way that you use your moves at the end of the week. You pick up a George Niang or a Vit Krejci or who the hell else is? Karis LeVert is still out right now. You could pick up a Mo Gay if you wanted defensive stats. I'm sure I'm forgetting some fringe level player on the Hawks. That's option 1. But to me, that's playing with fire because your choices are so limited. Option 2 is use a lot of your moves early in the week. Because today, Wednesday, where we talked about having a lot of choices, that's kind of like the last time that you can really power boost your week. Because we talked about Atlanta, we talked about Boston. You got these teams that have a rough scheduling patch. You're likely going to have a move left over when you get to the weekend because there just aren't that many places to pivot. What you do want to do, however, as you're working your way through the week is leave yourself an out tomorrow or Friday. Save one move probably at least until Friday if someone gets hurt, because that's the problematic spot. If somebody on your team gets hurt and you know they're going to miss the rest of the week, that's probably 2 games down the toilet Friday through Sunday. That's a spot where you could use one move late in the week to add 2 games to your ledger. But again, if you don't like the Hornets, there aren't that many other opportunities to do it. So you got the Hawks Saturday, Sunday, which matches up with the teams that we just talked about that don't play over the weekend. That was Dallas, Memphis, Minnesota. Oh, Orlando should be on that board. No, not Orlando. Well, yeah, sort of Orlando because they're off Saturday, Sunday as well. But the Magic play Monday, Tuesday, so I think that's might be why I left them off. Orlando probably should have been on that list for not great Thursday schedules. Sorry, guys. I'll go back and I'll add them in there before I post this thing anywhere else. So Orlando's the same thing. And then Phoenix was the other one. So yeah, you could move off of those guys to the Hawks. But more than likely, you're going to end up using a move for someone on your team that gets ruled out on a Friday. And maybe they're questionable and they got ruled out. And they're like, well, I don't know if they're going to play in their next game on Saturday or Sunday. By the way, I think there's only one team that has a Friday, Saturday back-to-back also. So terrible time to try to long stream this week. So feel free to use up 2 to 3 of your 4 moves early-ish in the week. I know that today is still pretty early. I mean, saving one move for Thursday through Sunday is a little bit dicey, but very few teams play tomorrow. So in all likelihood, knock on something, tomorrow's probably not going to be a heavy injury day with only 5 games. Friday, someone's going to get ruled out, and then you're probably going to need to make a move off of that. So save a move until Friday probably to replace a potential injury. Otherwise, last week there were a lot of things we could do on Thursday. This week, not that many. So if you're planning to do something on Thursday, probably think about doing it today instead. And just because you can get a much better player. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Like, rate, subscribe on the way out. I'll see you guys on social media. Back with 2 shows again tomorrow. Probably the same kind of double dip unless some other show hits me in the noggin. Because Thursday's streaming is so terribly, terribly bad. I don't know if we necessarily have to redo that one. So if we do a second show tomorrow, there's a chance it might be some sort of specialty show. We might also not be able to do it because my younger son is off school for parent-teacher conferences. So that's also a situation. I'm Dan for the Old Man Squad. See you guys tomorrow.